Welcome to the third Spark Writing Festival. We're so glad to have everyone. We are glad to be able to do this in a virtual format, which hopefully we will be able to revert back to in person during the next Spark Writing Festival. But we do follow UAB guidelines, so they're not fully back in person for all of their extra events. So here we are tonight. So welcome, everyone. Hello, Tay. Yay, peaches. Yeah, Clinton's got some of those good peaches. All right. So we'll let people kind of trickle in a little bit. We're gonna go ahead and get started. So, all right, bye, y'all. Tonight, we are going to talk a little bit about flash fiction. So, flash fiction is one of those strange creatures that we don't exactly know what it is. People can't agree on what to call it. There are so many different things you can do with flash fiction, but what we all sort of generally agree on, what we've managed to agree on, is that flash fiction is at least 1,000 words of fiction or less. So we typically aim between 300 words and 1,000 words, and that's if you're trying to get in and published somewhere. That's sort of like the name, the moniker that we put on it. Less than that is kind of known as microfiction, so that's going to be around 250 words, but there's even less than that with the 6-word story. So it's really such a large demarcation of what flash fiction is and what it can be. So for tonight, I have a couple of samples of flash fiction to read off for you, and then we have a couple of writing sparks that I'm going to put you through, and then we'll be able to share with one another. You can ask questions if you want. Feel free to utilize the chat box down there if you so choose. Like I mentioned, we are recording tonight so that we can post this on all of our social medias afterwards in case anyone wasn't able to make it. So I came to flash fiction sort of through poetry and the fact that I get a little bit distracted when I'm trying to write larger works of fiction, right? I kind of get tired with it. It's hard for me to hang on to the storyline, and I wind up starting a million different pieces and kind of pushing them aside, and that can kind of get discouraging. You can kind of get a boost to the serotonin with shorter pieces of work, and you've done it, it's finalized, you push it to the side, you go send it out for publishing or whatever, you share it with your friends, and that's really gratifying. So that's kind of how I come to it. With flash fiction, you do still have to have a character or setting or story, right? Something has to happen. But at the same time, you have such a short amount of space, you have to make sure that you're making good with that space, right? So the language that you choose is important. Your sentence structure is important. So I find it to be kind of the fun sort of offspring between short fiction and poetry. With that, I'm going to start with Pieces from the Left Hand by John Robert Lennon. So this is a fun little collection. And inside, most of this collection deals with unintended consequences. So things that happened that someone was trying to prevent from happening, but wound up actually ushering in the consequence accidentally. So we're going to start with this first one, which is called Trust Jesus. A local teenager was caught spray painting on an abandoned railroad bridge above a busy 2-lane highway. Her graffito, which had nearly been finished when she was apprehended, read, "Trust Jesus." When her case came before our judge, he asked the teenager why she had done what she did. She apologized, telling him that she thought it would help. When he asked what it would help, the teenager had no answer and only reiterated her original statement. The judge levied a $500 fine and sentenced the girl to repaint the entire bridge, even the portion she had not defaced. Those who suggested to the judge that this was an extreme punishment were met with angry stares. For some weeks after the ruling, the girl could be seen suspended on a platform above the road after school, painstakingly erasing her original handiwork. She had become something of a local hero, and is said to be considering a run for a seat on the town council. Meanwhile, the repainted bridge had become a prime target of vandals and is now covered with vulgarisms and rude slogans. That's it. That is the entirety of the story. Fun little accidental happenstance. Okay. This next one is called Wake. The old man died, and our friend, his daughter, invited us to the wake. On the phone, she told us the circumstances of his death. He had a heart condition, and he'd been prescribed pills in a large green bottle, which he was to take 3 times daily. The prescription could be refilled at any time, indefinitely, and the old man had plenty of money, but a habit of tight-fistedness drove him to short his dosage, presumably to conserve the precious pills. Consequently, he suffered a stroke and died on the way to the hospital. It so happened that the old man was a connoisseur and had, over the years, amassed a large collection of fine and extravagant goods, wines and liqueurs and rare single malt scotches, obscure and expensive pipe tobacco, black market cigars. Many of his acquaintances, however, never knew he possessed these things because the old man would always smoke cheap cigarettes and drink the most pedestrian of drinks out of colorful metal cans. Not surprisingly, his many children loathed their father's miserly ways and spent their adulthood compensating with unbridled hedonism, which aged them prematurely and generated crushing debt. Though our friend did not mention it, the old man's will was said to have erased their debts instantly, with enough left over to keep them in cars, hotels, scrumptious meals, and new clothes for more than a year. The will had also provided for a huge wake, at which the children and their guests were supposed to consume every last precious item in the cellar. It was to this wake that our friend invited us. It was a memorable party, to say the least. The hundreds of guests drank themselves into a stupor, and a thick aromatic smoke filled the air until dawn. Everyone had a wonderful time. Our friend, however, could be seen dashing from room to room in a kind of fury, her face red and her hair streaming out behind her as if in a strong wind. At one point, we stopped her and asked why she seemed so angry. She replied that the old man had ruined her enjoyment by martyring himself. All she could think of was his privation and how he had sacrificed his own pleasures to augment his friends. At this point, we suggested that perhaps her father had in fact taken great pleasure in the anticipation of satisfaction, more than he might have taken in the satisfaction itself. And we noted that he probably imagined this party with great joy, as much joy as the guests were feeling at that moment, if not more. This gave our hostess pause, but it was only a few seconds before she shook her head and told us that she didn't know what we were talking about. She stalked off angrier than ever. We fell asleep during the cab ride home, and nothing has tasted as good to us since. Right? So we have a very short, brief moment in time. We have several characters actually in this one, even though we don't get full development from any of them. We don't even really get their names. In these particular narratives, we are being told the story much the same as if a friend were telling you a story of what happened to them the other day, right? So if I were to tell you about the time I went down to the Aldi and I accidentally smashed a glass bottle of cranberry juice everywhere and had to stand by while 3 employees came over and cleaned the mess up and would not allow me to help, and how it just absolutely set me on edge. I don't have to tell you what the inside of a grocery store, the inside of an Aldi looks like, because we already have some sort of preconceived notion of what that looks like, right? The glass bottle of cranberry juice, I don't have to describe it to you. I can tell you how it shattered, the way it shattered. I can describe to you the giant cleaning machine that came out and everything. So instead of spending time focusing on all of the detail, you can take the time and hyper-focus on just some of the detail, because you only have a brief amount of space. Flash fiction can be really strange, though, in how it plays around with words. Sometimes it doesn't have to be plot driven. And a good example of this is actually comes from Lydia Davis. This particular flash piece actually makes me kind of angry because I hate how it works, but it works so well in and of itself that I use it as an example for how to play with language, right? So this one is called A Mown Lawn. She hated a mown lawn. Maybe that was because mow was the reverse of wom, the beginning of the name of what she was, a woman. A mown lawn had a sad sound to it, like a long moan. From her, a mown lawn made a long moan. Lawn has some of the letters of man, though the reverse of man would be nam, a bad war, a raw war. Lawn also contained the letters of law. In fact, lawn was a contraction of lawman. Certainly, a lawman could and did mow a lawn. Law and order could be seen as starting from lawn order, valued by so many Americans. More lawn could be made using a lawn mower. A lawn mower did make more lawn. More lawn was a contraction of more lawmen. Did more lawn in America make more lawmen in America? Did more lawn make more nam? More mown lawn made more long moan from her, or a long mourn. So often, she said, Americans wanted more mown lawn. All of America might be one long mown lawn. A lawn not mown grows long. She said, better a long lawn, better a long lawn and a mole. Let the lawman have the mown lawn, she said, or the moron, the lawn moron. So see how she's playing there with the sound of the original phrase, a mown lawn. Not only does she break it down in sound, she breaks it down in how the letters construct the phrase itself. Mixes it up, changes it around, and at one point, so she shortens it, right, to mow, and then flips mow around. Then she takes lawman, and then takes man and flips man around. So she's doing the same things with different elements of all of these words that happen to be unrelated to one another, except through sound and their letter construction. And she shoves it all together and makes sense of it, doesn't make sense of it, don't know. I know it's very difficult to read, and I know it's taken me through some sort of experience, and I myself am changed at the end of a mown lawn. It makes me, every time I think about mowing my lawn, I refer back to this particular flash. It sticks with you. You will never think about a lawn mown or a mown lawn or a lawman or NAM without thinking about this one ever again. It just is kind of like an earwig. Then this is the last example that I'm going to read to you before we jump into constructing some of our own. The cedar trees. When our women had all turned into cedar trees, they would group together in a corner of the graveyard and moan in the high wind. At first, with our wives gone, our spirits rose and we all thought the sound was beautiful. But then we ceased to be aware of it, grew uneasy, and quarreled more often amongst ourselves. This was during the year of the high winds. Never before had such tumult raged in our village. Sparrows could not fly, but swerved and dropped into calm corners. Clay tiles tumbled from our roofs and shattered on the pavement. Shrubbery whipped our low windows. Night after night, we drank insanely and fell asleep in one another's arms. When spring came, the winds died down and the sun was bright. At evening, long shadows fell across our floors, and only the glint of a knife blade could survive the darkness. And the darkness fell across our spirits too. We no longer had a kind word for anyone. We went to our fields grudgingly. Silently, we stared at the strangers who came to see the fountain and our church. We leaned against the lip of the fountain, our boots crossed, our maimed dog shying away from us. Then the road fell into disrepair. No strangers came. Even the traveling priests no longer dared enter the village. Though the sun blazed in the water of the fountain, the valley far below was white with flowering fruit and nut trees, and the heat seeped into the pink stones of the church at noon and ebbed out at dusk. Cats paced silently over the beaten dirt from doorway to doorway. Birds sang in the woods behind us. We waited in vain for visitors, hunger gnawing at our stomachs. At last, somewhere deep in the heart of the cedar trees, our wives stirred and thought of us, and lazily, it seemed to us, carelessly returned home. We looked on their mean lips, their hard eyes, and our hearts melted. We drank in the sounds of their harsh voices like men coming out of the desert. That's it. So in this particular flash, Lydia Davis takes something unusual. Our wives turned into cedar trees. and then makes it normal for us, right? She takes something absurd, something that's out of the ordinary, something that wouldn't actually happen in our normal natural world, and she makes sense of it. Which a lot of flash fiction does. It's so strange in how it makes sense of the unusual. So that's actually what we're going to start with uh, for our first prompt. Okay. Um, so you guys know the butterfly effect, the whole idea that if a butterfly were to flap its wings in Mexico, that it would cause a hurricane somewhere else in the Gulf of Mexico. So something small and insignificant has a greater consequence over here. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to write a starting event, and then we're going to write the consequence, two seemingly unrelated events, and you're going to link those two events through a series of anaphora using the word because. So because the moth alighted on the flower, then what happened next? Then what happened next? So start first with your inciting incident, something small, because she opened the soda can, right? Because the baby threw the chicken on the floor. Um, because I paused to tie my shoe, something very small. Now I want you to think about a larger event. So you guys know like the story, the fairy tale rhyme, whatever, about because the horse lost its shoe, the entire war was lost, right? Because the cobbler didn't have enough nails to put on the horse's shoe, and the horse threw the shoe, and it threw the rider, and because the rider was thrown, the war was lost. We're doing something very much like that, but you're going to use the word because over and over and over again to link these two incidents. So I'm going to go ahead and give you 5 minutes. Start with your inciting incident, give me a consequence, and then try to start linking the two. 5 minutes, and then we will come back and we'll share with one another. Okay? And go. All right, and time. Great. Does anyone want to share their two incidents, their beginning incident and their consequence?
No, I'll share.
All right.
Should I read the whole thing or just?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay. Because the soap fell from my hands onto the floor outside the shower, a hair of mine got on it and I screamed, cursed God, and growled because of the noise and the wailing and all my yelling. My neighbor upstairs came and knocked on my door, pounding his fist against the olive green paint. Hey, keep it down. Because I had to rush to the door quickly in a purple bathrobe, still dripping water everywhere, the hardwood got warped in my living room, and my landlord refused to return my $200 deposit, which I counted on to pay the movers when my landlord kicked me out. Because I couldn't pay the movers, I had to rent a U-Haul and drag a mattress by myself out to the parking lot, and I ripped my mastectomy scar apart.
Very nice. Yes.
Thank
Great.
you.
That is a wonderful example of the prompt in action. I love it. Great. All right. Anyone else want to share? All right, Beth.
There we go. Because I was always unpopular in school, cruelty overspread our land. There was a moment when I was offered belonging. Our white schools team played a black schools team for the first time. They were so much better, and the popular core, our leaders, hated this and chanted slurs to reassert some semblance of superiority. I remember how their faces and voices contorted. I remember my shame as my face and voice settled into tribal comfort. But no adult stopped us. At the big rally many years later, when he promised to make us great again, I lifted the sign and belonged.
All right, great. So you've got that whole inciting incident and unintended consequence. I like it. Okay. Who's next? I'll go ahead and share. So I have not managed to connect the two just yet because I can be long-winded when I'm writing. But my inciting incident is because I didn't have change for $1, and my consequence is the train jumped the tracks. Right? Okay, we got one from Michael in the chat. Because the last time like the first, because it was the chosen time, because it'd been 8 years to the day, because right?
That wasn't complete. I hit the wrong button and it was sending it, but it wasn't quite complete. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
But I'm working to complete it.
All right, awesome. That's great. Writing is a process. Okay. So I frequently find it helpful when I'm working in my flash fiction genre, to not try and think so much about the word count as I'm writing, because that will come back in the editing process. So sometimes you have to overwrite these things in order to find the gold along the way. I do think very much stream of consciousness when I'm doing my flash fiction, just because it helps drag the reader through the particular piece, right? If you wind up with sort of a cadence because this, sooner than you know it, you've wound up completely at a different point than your starting point, but you've drug your own self through the narrative. And if you feel that quick repetition, if you feel that you're arriving somewhere quickly, the reader's going to feel it as well. So what I have for you next, our next sort of spark, I want you to look around your household and find an object. It can be any object, it doesn't have to be anything particularly fancy, but I want you to find an object And then I want you to imagine its life before you, right? How did that object come to be? So frequently when we think about family heirlooms, there are stories attached to them, right? So you already have kind of your end point, which is the object comes to you eventually, right? But what is the imagining of the object before all of that? Make some sort of story around something sitting in your household. So it can be something as simple as a pen, right? But this pen was sitting on the store shelf at one point. Imagine what this pen saw as people were passing by, waiting to be purchased, right? I did not purchase this pen. This pen was purchased for me as a Christmas present. My mother buys them in bulk for me every year. She gets anywhere between 50 and 70 of these things each year for me because I go through them so quickly, right? So this had to be acquired. It had to be manufactured. The the components had to be manufactured and then assembled, right? But even then, those came from somewhere else too, right? So where does the ink come from? How was this assembled? Was it assembled by human hands? Was it assembled by factory? So go ahead, look around, find an object, and I'll give you 8 minutes this time to start writing on a story about this particular object. Okay? And go. All right, and time. Okay, would anyone like to share what they have? Doesn't have to be complete and doesn't have to be perfect. We're all just getting our drafts down here.
I'll do one.
All right,
Here's my object.
fancy. Is that a woman's head on top of the?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Okay, here you go. It's rather Wagnerian. I think that's what drew me to it. A teapot with a dragon handle topped by a full-throated harpy, her hair billowing against a whirlwind. What was this artist thinking? She put her hands to the wet clay that appears dredged from some red-bottomed riverbed. The imprint of her fingers, impassioned by some fantasy, some delirium, formed a face, a howling mouth, streaming hair like serpents as a vessel for serenity. Tea.
I like your play with words there. That's great. Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, Taylor, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Here's the object.
Oh, what a cutie. What's this one's name?
Her name's Jenna.
Jenna. I love it.
The first time I met Jenna, she stole my chicken biscuit. It was the morning after my 21st birthday, the night before a drunken blur, and I woke up 2 doors down at my best friend's townhouse. Jenna was a small, shy mutt, newly purchased from the local animal shelter, purchased, not adopted, because she wasn't quite loved the way the other two dogs were. Even though she was brought into a home, it wasn't her home yet, but that wouldn't happen until about a year later.
All right, great. I love it. You've got the start of the story there. I'd love to see that play out. Okay, Carla?
Okay, my object is a lighter. I'm
Nice.
sitting on the porch and I had to light a candle to keep the bugs away. Pick me, pick me. I can do many things. What would you use me for? Think about it. I can light your way. I can be hot. I can start a fire. I can light a candle. Just pick me, I'm ready to go. I've been sitting here on this shelf for way too long. Well, I really haven't been on the shelf that long. I was in the warehouse first. I was there for 6 months. Finally, it was my time to go. I was packed in a bus with 49 others. The ride to the store was bumpy. We crossed more train tracks, and I feel sorry for the cars that had to drive down some of those roads. The potholes are as wide as a grave. Anyway, I digress because I made it to the Dollar Tree in one piece. The young man that stocked the shelf was very gentle or exceptionally lazy. He placed each lighter one at a time. It appears that he was stalling. I was so excited when I reached that shelf. My constant thought was, who would take me home? That ended up being delayed. It was the week before the 4th of July, and I knew it wouldn't be long. But some other knucklehead decided to add more lighters to the shelf, and I got pushed to the back.
Very nice. I love it. I love the imagining along the way, the car ride, the store stalker, everything. That's wonderful. Okay, Katie, you wanted to go.
Okay, this is gonna be probably a very strange object to some of y'all. I have a taxidermy bat that was resourced by his own death. So, swooping and screeching in the still void of the night, unable to fathom that it would be found dead on the concrete when the sun rose again, unable to do anything. He is brought indoors where his frail body hardens next to the frozen pizzas in a whirring Arctic box. Later, he would be bathed in salt and preserving fluid, spreading his wings for the last time within a shadow box with a single glass pane. Unable to fly, his wings stay spread for doting on, because most are unable to find beauty in darkness.
I love it. And of course, I love any kind of like old animal remains. It's great. I love it. All right, LLC.
I have a whittled bird. That is my object. The bird on the teacher's desk was yellow or mustard or a kind of green-brown and covered with a thin layer of dust. It had black bead eyes sunk on either side of its brown chipped beak. In its gashed mini maw, you could see wood grain or whatever wood is made of, veins, flesh. How did the years of rungs give a tree its woodiness? The teacher was not a woodworker and so didn't know, and she didn't teach science, and she couldn't tell you even what kind of bird the whittler had been trying to whittle. Xylem and phloem came to mind, words she'd learned from a better teacher who had told her before she was a teacher that she'd never forget. Xylem up, phloem down. She wondered while she graded what her old, better teacher was up to now, 4 years after her husband had died.
Very nice. I love it. You started with the object and then went straight to a different narrative. That's great. No, wonderful. Okay, Sophia.
Hi, I'm out of town, so this is difficult on the phone. And since I'm out of town, I don't have much, but I did pull this out of my backpack. It's a coloring book. Its cover declared it to be a secret garden, but there was little hidden or even growing within the covers. Its inked images, ready to be filled with color, were largely unadorned, languishing with lack. Intended by the giver to be a thoughtful gift, it was difficult for the recipient to utilize properly, given her list of very important responsibilities. And yet she hoped it would be filled, evidence of a life filled with meditative intention.
Very nice. Thank you. I love it. Beth, you wanted to go again?
Yeah, if there's not somebody else that still wants to go that haven't gone.
Okay. Anyone else?
Okay. I've cheated a little. It's 2 objects, but they're together.
Okay.
The marionette was smooth, shiny, beautiful, and manufactured. Small, delicate factory hands had painted her eyebrows and eyelashes, inserted her golden, silky hair, and strung the joints that let her move, dance, play. She held pride of place on the toy shop shelf and admired, desired, until the purchase that brought this prized gift to my sister, who loved theater and puppets. One day she made the devil puppet with her own quick hands. He had gross features, a silly leer, awkward flat mitten hands. Her fingers fit inside, a fat red and black caked body. His head was lumpish paper mache with the marks of his making. All he could do was sway, fling his arms wide, and hug. Now he sits on the shelf, snuggled against the lovely marionette, his head on her breast, gazing up at her, but she always ever turns her head away, disconnected and dreaming.
Great. Thank you so much. Man, you guys really have like latched onto this prompt and ran with it. That's wonderful. Michael, yeah, if you want to go ahead and share your first prompt, go for it.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can. Yep.
I'm not really this. I was trying to put it in the chat.
Okay.
The title, July 15th, 2021. Because the last time, not unlike the first, because it was the chosen time, because it had been 8 years to the date that my mother received her miracle lift after supper hour to celebrate the anniversary, like slipping a newborn from the jumper. My parents' firstborn finds them expecting their son too there in our father's nursery.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, you really got the because going. I like that. Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna move on to one more. Yeah, prompt. Sound good, guys?
How you get to the airport?
Let's see.
Oh, okay.
I want you to ponder using one word over and over until it loses its meaning. Okay. So let's think of words that are like homophones, like the word wood, WOOD, and the word would, WOULD, right? Think about things that are synonyms. So if we've got the word wood, um, woods, forest, trees. Think about the sounds that this particular word makes. Can it be broken down into smaller words, much like a mown lawn was, right? So does it have any kind of like prefix or suffix attached to it? Can you rearrange the letters and make different kinds of words from it? How does it sound? All right, so what is its meaning? What is its construction? You can look at the history of the word, right? Has that word changed over the years? You can have words like dovetail, right? Which can be an actual tail of the bird that is a dove. Or you can have the word dovetail, which is a kind of cut that is used in woodworking to join two pieces of wood together, right? So how are these particular words used? Flip it upside down. Even just repeating the same word over and over again makes it weird, right? So go ahead, try and latch onto a word. I'll give you guys 5 minutes and then we can come back and sort of revisit it. Okay. All right, and time. Okay, who wants to share? All right, Sophia.
I'm not sure if I did this right, but here goes. Present presciently presents presence. Gifting giftless gets glittery guilt. Presence presents presence, presently prescient. Presence pressing presence presently, impressing the prescient.
No,
Is that what you were going for?
I mean, that's one way to do it. I absolutely love that, how you're playing with words and sounds all at once. That's great. No, that is absolutely one way to get after the prompt. Okay, Rachel, what you got?
All right, this might be a tongue twister too. We'll see. All right, flower, flow, flower, her. Flowers of red, pink, yellow hues, and flower of whitest white baked into fluffy biscuits. And flower of whitest white in the bride's bouquet, and flour of rye and wheat in a hearty loaf, and the flour flows through the sifter as grandma turns the tiny metal handle, and the flowers flow to the ground as the wind blows through the dogwoods.
Nice, I love it. No, that's so wonderful. Okay, who else?
I can go if no one else wants to.
All right, go for it, Lori.
Okay. This is fishtail. Our tail stuck out. We are straddling two lanes like a mermaid swimming sideways. I'm stressed out like a fishwife, worried to death. I have a tale to tell of being at the summit stoplight, our blue car straddling two lanes, my mouth gasping like a fish's, open wide as a bass or a catfish's mouth, grilled up, herbed and seasoned at Seasons 52, one of the summit's fancy restaurants. The fish tells a tale of his tail being chopped, diced and cubed, stacked like architecture, tall, high on a plate sprinkled with rosemary and thyme and basil and oregano. The fishmongerers in the truck behind us, leaving the summit in a hurry to shop for his next swordfish, honking his horn at us, his tugboat horn blaring, not singing, a mermaid's siren song.
The fact that you guys did this in like 5 minutes is really mind-blowing, because I didn't even get done with mine. I only just barely got started on mine. That's wonderful, Lori. Thank you.
I'll raise my hand to go.
All right, go for it, Walt.
Well, that actually was someone else, but I can go. Who else spoke first?
You go ahead, Walt, and I'll go after yours if there's time.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Determined was the word in the middle of the paragraph I had to read in front of the class. How is it pronounced, I thought. I spoke it under my breath. Determined, accent on the last syllable seemed most correct in my fourth grade mind. I knew the word mine. I'd heard of a coal mine. I'd heard of a gold mine. Those words were mine. They were fixed in my mind and had to be correct. I did not know the word deter. Speak what you know, said your father, or risk appearing the fool. I read the paragraph. I am resolved to never read in front of the class again.
I love it. That's great. That's great. Okay, Michael, did you want to go?
Sure. I may have varied a little bit on it. I played with sound, though, and phonics and letter spelling. Okay. Ruth Sun Song. It's in the chat, by the way, if someone wants to follow along. Ruth Sun Song. There is no S-O-N-G without the S-O-N. There is no song without the sun. Every song starts with the sun. We come to the Father by way of the Son, but there is no son without the mom.
Very nice. Thank you so much. Guys,
Sure.
you rose to the occasion on all of these, and I am so pleased what you've managed to come up with in such like a short amount of time. So I did actually kind of want to plug two different publishing sites if you guys feel the need to work on these some more, which I hope that you do. I hope that you work on these, you refine them, expand them out if you so choose. And when you do, we've got Smoke Long Quarterly, which I'm going to drop into the chat. They are a wonderful online flash fiction site. Their whole idea is that they publish fiction that can be consumed within the length of time it would take someone to smoke a cigarette, right? So smoke long. And they actually have like weekly publications, but then they have a quarterly publication that they put out, and they actually pay $50 to each of their contributors for doing that. And yes, Sophia, I was going to mention Havoc, right? So Sophia, do you want to plug Havoc for us real quick? I already have the link right here.
I've been doing that all week, so I'm at a conference. But yes, Havoc publishes speculative fiction, speculative flash fiction, which is science fiction, wacky Wednesdays, thrillers, mysteries, and fantasy, all in 1,000 word or less bites. They publish something free every day, and then we do anthologies for the best of our selections every 6 months.
Yeah, great. So, and Sophia works on their editorial team as well. So, yeah, maybe she'll have the chance to look at some of your stuff. I'm also going to drop for you down here the Rose Medal Press Field Guide to Writing Flash Fiction. If any of you are curious about reading more about flash fiction and how to construct flash fiction. So I have dropped these 3 links down here in the chat for you. I started with this particular field guide, and it's just really helpful. It's got a bunch of different prompts and stuff like that, which I do have more prompts that we didn't get to tonight. So if you guys want to write to me afterwards, if you want more prompts, feel free to. If you want to write to me and share what you've written, I would love the chance to be able to see what you guys have made from these prompts. So yeah. Does anyone else have anything else that they would like to share? No? Okay, great. So I am going to leave you with one more prompt, right? So you take this prompt with you, you work on it. I want you to take a mundane thing that is normal about the world, and I want you to make it odd, right? Mix it up. Okay, so shadows are everywhere, right? But what would it be like if you could pick up a shadow? What if you were to walk outside and the sky was green and you thought that was weird, but everyone else thought that it was just normal, right? Think about things that everyone just started doing it one day, and so everyone does it now, like it's become the norm. Something out of the ordinary that, you know, if we were to take a cell phone, right, back to, you know, the 1940s, people would be like, what is this thing? Think about things that one person can do it and they don't find it all that weird, but it is incredibly strange to everyone else. What if you could snap your fingers and light all the candles in a room, right? You were just born with that. You discovered it one day. It's just a thing that's happened. People get tired of you get tired of people wanting to use you as a party trick, right? It's so mundane to you. You've always been able to do the thing, but people find it completely fascinating. And it's not like a huge thing, right? It's just one strange, weird little thing. Okay. So take something about life, make it weird. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. This has been a wonderful start to our week. Do make sure to keep up with our schedule of events. So it's every other day we have our free community events, and then we still have plenty of room in all of our immersive writing workshops if you want to join. So we have Writing for Young Adults with Randy Pink, which is going to be amazing. Randy is spectacular. Then we've got Fiction Writing with Angela Mitchell, and I know and love Angela. She is so great. That's going to be a wonderful offering. Then we have Poetry with Tina Brazil, and she's going to be rocking it out. and nonfiction with Selam Green. So, and if you have not had the chance to take a workshop with Selam, oh, she is incredible. So all of our immersive writing workshops run Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. There is a $60 entry fee, but I still have plenty of scholarships available. If you find the entry fee a hindrance, just go ahead, write on to me, and we'll make sure that we get you set up with scholarship funds and everything, and you can join on in. So thank you to everyone who showed up here tonight. I appreciate all of you guys, and I will see you around in our other events. So thank you guys so much.